Hey everybody, Dan Schinder here on Drum Talk TV here at the Alexis Park Resort in Las Vegas, here with a live audience who is here for Stanton Moore's Spirit of New Orleans. It's basically a drum emporium of knowledge is what's going on here, right?
Yeah, smorgasbord of knowledge.
Yeah, great. You love doing this stuff, don't you?
I do, yeah, it's a lot of fun for me. Galactic had 3 weekends in a row here in Vegas, 3 4-night weekends, so 12 shows over 3 weekends. And when I saw that that was coming in and we were going to be doing that, I decided, well, why don't I do a drum camp? And I picked the last weekend to do it.
Right.
That way it would give us some time to get the word out. And so we had all these gentlemen sign up, and we've had a blast. We've been here working on stuff during the day. Galactic came in on the first day, and these guys got to play with Galactic, so we had amps here and everything.
That's awesome.
And so we were in here playing. And then last night the guys came to sound check, and they got to check out the Galactic drums, and we took pictures, and they all got to play the drums for a little while. And so we've been having a good time, and they've been asking me all kinds of questions about what they've been seeing, watching me play with Galactic. So, they've been taking notes, and in this song, so it's been a lot of fun, and we've actually been spending a good bit of time together, and hopefully they're going to walk away with a lot of their questions answered.
Right, good. How could you not, right? Yeah, show a little bit of the audience so everyone knows there's really some guys here that are serious enough about their drumming to come to one of Stanton's events. And we got a chance to get here a little early and see you do some of your thing. I love your teaching style. It's great.
Thank you.
I think that is, when I think back to when I was in high school, there were some classes that were really easy for me. I learned great. And some classes where I just couldn't get it. And when I think of what those common denominators were, it comes down to the teaching style of the teacher, really, I think.
Yeah.
I think I heard y'all talking about kids earlier. Between my wife and I, we have 8 kids and 5 grandkids.
Wow.
And it applies to parenting, it applies to music education, any education. So it's cool to see you in action doing your thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very cool. I want to start by asking you about some music things, and then we'll move back towards education, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Whenever we're going to have a guest, we post some stuff on Facebook. We're going to say, we're getting with this guy, getting with this lady. A couple questions you want me to squeeze in. Everybody asks me to ask you, what's with the other bass drum? Ask them about that other funky sized bass drum. It's on the wrong side, all this stuff. So talk about that for some of the traditionalists that short circuit, fall on the floor, drool on yourselves, and do fish flops when you see a weird kid, and you know who you are. So dispel all that. What's up with that?
Well, that developed over time. I just told the story to the guys a little earlier, but what happened was Galactic, the band that I play with the most, we play every Lundi Gras, which is the Monday night before Mardi Gras. And we've been playing at Tipitina's for about 15 years now. The Monday night before Mardi Gras, we play till the sun comes up. Then we go out and parade with either Mardi Gras Indians, or we have our own parade called the Crew of Julu. So before we had been playing at Tipitina's, we were playing at a place called Benny's. I was supposed to bring the bass drum the next day on Mardi Gras Day and parade around town with the bass drum. So I was going to bring...
Sounds like my living room activities.
Yeah. So I was going to bring my vintage bass drum that I was playing at the time, and I wasn't really excited about that because it was in really good shape. It was from the 60s, and I didn't really want to bring it out on the street.
Sure, yeah.
But that's what I was going to do because that's what I was, that was what was going to make sense. But as I was playing at this club, Benny's, I saw this big bass drum on the wall, and I knew the owner, and I said to Felix, I said, hey man, could I borrow that drum and use it for Mardi Gras Day and then get it back to you? He said, yeah, sure. It was just hanging on the wall as decoration. So I borrowed the drum, and it was 26 inches, and it was only 12 inches wide. So it was really light to carry, and I had only like a timpani mallet,
right?
And which was not a substantial mallet to play this bass drum with. And so the drum sounded better when I would actually lay my knuckles into the drum.
Ooh.
So halfway through the day, I'm bleeding all over this bass drum, and it has casting heads on both sides. So I kept the drum, and I didn't even think much of it until next year. I played it on Mardi Gras Day again, and then I still hadn't gotten it back to Felix, and the club had been closed in the meantime, and he told me, just go ahead and keep it. So I was like, okay, cool. So then I started wondering, well, what will this thing sound like if I put a bass drum pedal on it? Because I was like, well, John Bonham uses a 26. So I started making loops with this 26-inch bass drum and running them through this comp torsion pedal, compression, distortion, and it just made it sound like, boom. It's like
love it.
awesome
I love
sounding.
that.
So it's like, oh my God, this thing sounds amazing. So I was using either an 18 or a 20 with Galactic and with everything else I was doing. So I was noticing some guys were doing things where they'd have a standard size 22-inch bass drum here, and then they would do a remote 18.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, I'm already using an 18 or a 20, so I want to go bigger.
So you reversed the concept.
Yeah. I wanted it to be like my overdrive or like my distortion pedal.
Yeah.
So I started doing that and setting up I had an old bass drum, an old double pedal. So I started just experimenting with it, brought it to a couple gigs, and it was awesome. And it just sounded massive through
I bet.
Yeah, through the PA. So I would mic it on the batter side, never put a hole in it or anything. So now, anytime that I get a kit from Gretsch, I have them make me a bass drum to go with the kit. And nowadays, I've noticed that on the remote side or the slave side of the double, so I've got just a standard double pedal that goes over to the 26. But I've noticed that on the remote side, there's a hole there's a hub, and I experimented with putting a beater in there. So now I hit the 20 at the same time as I hit the 26. So I get all the punch still of the 20, but it just adds the 26. Because before it would be like when I go to the 26, depending on where in the room you were sitting, and if it was a big room, you might get all the low end, but you'd lose the punch sometimes.
So is it almost creating like a live version of what a sub kick is designed to do in the studio?
Yeah,
That's really cool.
Sort of like that, but bigger, I think.
What did the band think when you first showed up and said, I'm going to put this here?
They think I'm nuts anyway.
So it made there it goes.
Yeah,
they just figured it's business as usual.
Yeah, but it was massive sounding, and they saw the way that the audience would react to it. And, sometimes people will be watching, I'll read comments on YouTube like, I don't hear a difference. And that's because you're listening to it on tiny speakers, watching it on YouTube. It's like, come see me live and you'll feel the difference. Or if you're listening to it on a system that's got a subwoofer or if you're hearing it through a PA or, every time I go into Vic's drum shop in Chicago, he's playing Modern Drummer from 2010, and he's got big subwoofers in his shop, and it just sounds massive when it's coming through his system. So, if you're not watching it on YouTube, it'll sound pretty good.
That's so funny. I love talking to drummers about, we all have different setups, even if we have the same setup. If everyone in here had the same 5-piece Gretsch, we'd all set it up slightly different because we're built differently. Our reach, our torso, our posture, all those things. But I love talking about, once in a while, completely rearrange something in your kit, even if it means just changing the position of one thing. So my question is, when you added that, Stanton, and started working with the other pedal and everything, how did that affect not just your grooves and your beats, but your soloing? Did it change the way you think and the patterns in your mind about what to do and open up a new door to creativity?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, soloing wise, as I use that as my overdrive a lot of times, but I can also use it as a texture change. So I'll accompany myself with either like a mambo bass drum pattern or some kind of bottom end, and I'll solo on top of it. Now, if I go to another section where maybe I'll go to the brushes or something, maybe I'll switch over to the 26 and change the texture on the bottom as well. And you can do things like that. Or if I've been building something for a while and I'm playing it and it's smaller and then I get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then I go over to the 26 and
Just
it's like,
opens it up.
and it's really like helps create, it enhances the crescendo. And I might crescendo over a few minutes of basically varying this idea, and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then I go over to the 26 and make it even bigger, so it can really build a climax to the end of a solo in a really big, massive way.
Do you, how much thought goes into the tuning as far as, do you tune that drum for that drum, or is there a certain tonal relationship you're aiming for in relationship to your other bass drum?
Yeah, I tune it for that drum, and tune it to be way bigger and more open sounding than this drum. And with Galactic, neither of my drums have holes in the heads. So the 20, I've got a little foam in the bottom, using a coated Power Stroke 3. I tuned the front a little higher than the batter. Batter's just pretty medium. The front's a little higher, and I use coated fiber skins on the fronts. And then inside the 20, I've got a D6, Audix D6 on a Kelly shoe.
Oh, cool.
So it's mounted in there. Then the 20, that's in the 20. That's in the 20.
Okay.
The 26, I've got an Audix D6 aimed at the batter side, and I've got a little bit of foam, coated Power Stroke 3 again.
Right.
And then off of the 16-inch floor, I've got an LP claw.
Oh, pointing at the beater side.
So I try to minimize as many mic stands as I can. Like
that's
on the
cool.
snare, I've got an LP claw coming off of my
the
hi-hat stand.
That's smart.
So that I don't have all these stands all over the place.
Right.
I try to minimize.
It's a very clean look. I've noticed that about your setup. All the live pictures.
There's a lot of stuff up there because these guys got to experience that yesterday. There's a lot of stuff up there. So I try to clean it up as much as I possibly can. So for the 26 over here, it's got the LP claw going there. And now speaking of, since we're gearing out here, speaking of cleaning stuff up, I toured with Galactic opening up for B.B. King and Jeff Beck for a few weeks several years ago, and I got to meet Terry Bozzio that way.
Yeah.
And Terry and I have become buddies, and he's such a sweet guy, and I've learned a lot from him. I was having problems with the universal joints blowing out because I really step on that thing, so they'll get all gummy and stuff. So Terry said, yeah, man, he said, try using just one universal joint, and then take that rod. That rod will go right on the nub of the double pedal. So I said, oh, that's a great idea. So I did that. Then that helped. Then I started noticing that I was basically in a straight line anyway.
Right.
So I had DW make me a rod long enough, and it just so happens that it's 24 inches. So the rod for the 26-inch bass drum, this is how I remember it.
So there's no extension or connector. It's one long piece. That's cool.
So because these pedals are kind of triangulated, when you stack them, they start going in a circle.
Yeah.
So it turns out that the 26 is exactly at the angle that I would want it to be at, with no universal joints. That makes it a lot simpler and a lot less maintenance.
Yeah, because it's a unitary piece. It eliminates a whole fault that could be there. Yeah, that's great.
So that piece will crack every now and then where you affix it to there, but very rarely. It's knock on wood. It's been pretty reliable as of late. So that's another thing that I do. That was a helpful tip, trick of the trade from Terry Bozzio.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We have a pretty wide reach with Drum Talk TV. So for those of you on Mars that are not real familiar with Galactic, how would you describe that style of music? I mean, and everyone has a different perception of the same thing sometimes. I see it as progressive funk, jazz, but how would you describe it, being that it's your thing?
Yeah, to me, it's high-powered, heavy-driven funk with New Orleans roots.
Right.
And kind of a rock edge. Not so much of a jazz thing anymore, really. I mean, maybe when we started out earlier, it had a little bit more of that. But it's really, we're playing bigger festivals, bigger rooms now, so we really kind of make it high energy, very danceable. And in a lot of the records now, as I was explaining to these guys, we got lots of layers of mean loops and stuff, and lots of sonic adventure going on in a lot of the stuff. Lots of experimentation with the tones and the sonic possibilities within what we're doing. So it used to be that we were very pure and trying to play almost with vintage tones. So we're still playing with vintage type tones. I mean, the kits that I play are very much still kind of new versions of what a vintage kit would be.
Yeah.
I mean, the Gretsch shells are still the same as they were back in the 60s. And I try to make all my kits have a vintage vibe, even if they're new kits. But
can I say something about Gretsch on that note?
Yeah.
We did what I think ended up being a great interview with Gretsch. Our correspondent, Andrew McCauley, did it with them at NAMM, went through all their new stuff. And they really have gone back to working with their vintage roots. I don't know how much you guys know about the science of drum construction and sonics, but
we learned a lot about it today, thanks to Ronn Dunnett. Ron's here. I don't know if you can see him on camera, but Ron is here.
Go ahead and show Ron. Wave,
he
Ron.
Did a presentation. So Ron did a presentation all about shell construction, and it wasn't all about that. It was a lot about a lot of stuff, but in it there was some about shell construction and theory and makeup, and these guys I think learned a lot.
Good.
And I've talked with Ron about this stuff a lot, and I even learned a lot today
Great.
as well still.
Well,
So
they went back to even some 3-ply stuff
Yeah.
with this new vintage thing that's just killer. So I love that they have really maintained the integrity of that and even gone back to it more in their line, you know, because that's what they're really known for in a big way. And thanks for explaining, you know, to those that might not be as familiar with the music, you know, what it's like. And on that note, I know you have some great educational materials on the New Orleans feel and sound and what is that approach. What are some of the fundamentals that you can mention that are part of the identification of that style of music to hopefully influence some people to understand the importance of it and how you can use it in other styles so that they buy some of your DVDs on that and really get their heads around it? 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that the more styles you learn, I listen to Dixieland, ragtime, progressive rock, heavy metal, everything, because it just opens up your vocabulary as opposed to putting yourself in one box and saying, I'm this.
Right.
That's okay, but if you still don't go out and taste other things,
Yeah.
you know, so I'm big on that. I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, to me, the whole New Orleans thing was one of the key elements that I want people to take away from it is the notion of the feel of it, which is often in between straight, in between swing, and it's in this sweet spot in between. And every guy is going to have their own sweet spot, and the same guy will have a different sweet spot for different tunes. But if you can experiment with this and get it into your playing a little bit, this notion of playing in between straight and swing, and we worked on this together. I might show you something about it in a second. But if you can work on that, then that's going to help your feel in funk, in rock. I mean, the reason we love John Bonham, the reason we love Bernard Purdie, Clyde Stubblefield, Jabo Starks, Zigaboo, all of those guys play with a feel that's in between straight and swing. And Bonham didn't grow up in New Orleans, but he definitely checked out a lot of Earl Palmer.
Yeah.
And he was a master of playing in between the cracks. Because all the guys that I just named, not all of them grew up in New Orleans. Only Zig, who I named, grew up in New Orleans, but they all grew up listening to music that swung.
Yeah.
So when they tried to play straight 16th notes, they had a natural lope in their playing.
Yeah.
So for us now, we have to go back and readdress that if we want to have that organic
Have
feel.
the movement, so it's not just so rigid.
Yeah,
It's organic.
so
like
one
you
of the
said.
styles that you can go to and really isolate that nuance is the New Orleans drumming, which can either be the traditional New Orleans second line or the Zigaboo stuff, or even some more of the contemporary modernist stuff that I do when I'm playing linear stuff with a New Orleans feel, still in between straight and swing. So any of that stuff that you check out, you're gonna help your feel by understanding how to play in between the cracks, play in between straight and swing. So that's why I like to get people into that, because I feel like if you can play any of that stuff and make it feel good, well then you're going to be able to play all these other things and make it feel good. When you go to play John Bonham, you're going to understand a little bit more about how to get that swagger that he has, which is all about in between straight and swing. But one of the styles that isolates that is the New Orleans thing.
No offense to any of the other my drummer brothers out there that have been on the show and that we geek out on about John Bonham. Interviewed Brian Tichy this morning, who's been on for the 3rd time now, who puts on the Bonzo Bash. He has about 40 of some of the biggest names in drumming come, and they all do a Led Zeppelin song. Just announced that on the 24th of this month, he's doing sort of the same thing to really pay tribute to Keith Moon and John Entwistle, and we're going to cover that. But I've never heard that, what you just said, explained so well. So thank you for that. That really, it's like one of those things, you know what it is and you can't put your finger on it, but you really articulated it well. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. One more music question before you show me something that hopefully I'll kind of pull off. And then we'll all make the room roar, like you were saying, which would be great. Tell us a little bit about your project Conversations. Do I understand that it's more of it goes back to the traditional trio-style jazz from a long ago era? Is that basically what it is?
Well, yes, sort of. What it is it's a return to my roots, and also sort of a reinvention of the public persona that I've presented in the last several years. What a lot of people have heard about me and my background, but haven't necessarily heard me do musically, is that I do have a jazz background. I went to Loyola University, played in the big band there, studied with Johnny Vodakovich, played tons of gigs in a jazz context coming up in New Orleans before I hit the road with Galactic. And have continued to play jazz gigs here and there, but I really wanted to address that side of my playing. After I got done with Groove Alchemy, I felt like that was putting myself through a 5-year doctoral program on funk drumming. And I felt like it really enhanced my understanding and my playing in a funk context, really refined my funk context. Finally got to a part where it's like, oh, Clyde, I can improvise in the style of Clyde Stubblefield. I now can improvise in the style of Jabo Starks, David Garibaldi. I know the differences between David Garibaldi and Mike Clark.
You're speaking their languages phonetically correct.
Exactly. Yeah. And Zigaboo, I'd already been improvising in the style of Zigaboo, but now it just helped me understand all that stuff so much on such a deeper level. So once I got done with that, I was like, whoa, that was great. I don't know if I want to tackle anything that in depth ever again. And then a couple weeks later, I was like, okay, what's next? It's like, well, I don't know if I necessarily want to write a book on jazz, but I want to put myself through the same process of basically putting myself through a doctoral program on jazz drumming, which I've already kind of gotten my master's in, but don't perform it necessarily so much live. I wanted to really, really get into it and refine it and make it part of my life continuing onward. So I started shedding a lot of this stuff. I sought out Kenny Washington, took a couple lessons from him, started trying to hang out with Jeff Hamilton a lot more and take what Jeff would show me when I go to his house or when we'd be at dinner and really try to absorb it and work on it. Really started shedding with brushes a lot, went through every book and DVD I possibly could. And that's not how you learn how to play brushes. You learn how to play brushes by playing brushes, right? So, working on a book's DVDs, taking lessons, that'll get to you a certain level. So then I said, well, I really want to advance this. So I started a piano trio and started playing on Tuesdays at Snug Harbor when I was in town. And I'd record it, and then through the week, listen to it, figure out how I could improve, and in the next week, improve a little bit, record it again, wash, rinse, repeat,
Right.
So it was really a way to give myself an outlet to develop all this stuff that I was working on, and then started playing as people started realizing, oh yeah, man, Stanton can play can play jazz. So then I started getting calls to play with Delfino Marsalis' big band, and then started doing more gigs and around town on a jazz kind of level. So I really have been enjoying that. So then I always had it in the back of my mind when I started the piano trio, I'll hopefully get it to a level where I want to record it. So we got to that level and we went in and recorded. And I wanted to let it grow and develop organically, not be like, well, let's pick 12 standards and we'll go in. So I really wanted to experiment, take my time, and develop what would work with us. And what I started noticing, what really worked, were things that one of us had played with the original composer at some point. And so it wound up being a lot of New Orleans composers. So David Torkanowski and Jim Singleton had played a lot with James Black, one of the great New Orleans drummers and composers, who wrote stuff in the early 60s that is still challenging today. Odd time signatures and odd phrases, odd numbers of bars, but the melodies are so lyrical and so musical that when you listen to it, you don't even realize that. Then when you try to learn the tune, you're like, my goodness, this is the Bayer of a tune. And it's still really challenging for us to play. So we were playing a lot of that stuff, and then a lot of stuff that those guys had played with other great artists from New Orleans that they had written over time. And in a couple standards here and there, but things that we had made our own, So we developed our own repertoire and kind of put our own thumbprint on the standard piano trio. But the reason I picked a piano trio was I figured if I'm going to learn, if I'm going to start a jazz project for myself, I'm going to tackle this in a big way. So one of the most challenging aspects of going from making a living, making a name for yourself, playing funk and rock, and even playing with heavier stuff with Corrosion and Conformity, Tom Morello and Boots Riley with Street Sweeper Social Club, all those things, Galactic is loud, and some of these things get even louder. So one of the biggest challenges is for me to get very comfortable playing at a softer volume. So the softest situation that I could think of was a piano trio.
That's great.
Yeah, so I wanted to play brushes a lot. I wanted to play softer, so I said, let me do this piano trio. Also, it's a lot easier to pay 2 guys than it is to pay 4 or 5, right? So I said, all these reasons I wanted to do the piano trio and do it that way and really develop it, and it's worked out great. And I'm really happy with the way that the record has come out. Awesome. And I think it's a side of my playing that a lot of people aren't going to hear, that they haven't heard yet. So it's not so much a traditional thing where it's not like I'm playing like Philly Joe Jones and Papa Joe Jones and playing in that style. It's traditional in that it's piano trio, and I'm playing, 12, 14, 18, playing a lot more brushes. But some of the tunes are in odd times. Some of the tunes have like a street beat element to it, and some of them are swinging out, and there are some ballads with mallets on the toms and stuff like this. So it's my approach to a piano trio.
That's great. And before you help me embarrass myself, which my wife will attest to, them, I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
Why don't we take some questions from some of the guys that have been here? Does anyone have a question about anything we've talked about, or even something you've worked on with Stanton since you've been here? Don't be shy. Come on, we're drummers, we're not shy. What is your name? I'm sorry?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, okay.
It's obvious that you're very passionate about teaching. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about kind of how you generated and discovered and grew as a teacher.
Yeah. I, of course, started teaching private lessons here and there and stuff like that, and that's fine. And I still do private lessons on the road, and people seek me out for that.
That's great.
But what really started to intrigue me was Drum Magazine. Andy Dorshek from Drum Magazine reached out to me and asked me to start writing some articles for Drum about New Orleans drumming. So I started writing this column, and then I started having people come up to me and say, "Man, the way you explain that stuff, I've never had anybody explain it that well." And I just started to notice that I had a knack for explaining stuff and making it clear to people. And I think it's because all of this stuff was very mysterious to me. Even though I grew up in New Orleans, this element of playing in between the cracks, I'd heard about that, but nobody could show me how to do it. So I came up with little exercises and little things to exactly work on that for myself. Then by the time Andy asked me to start writing these articles, I realized, I already developed a system. I already developed a program for myself to work on this stuff. Now I could just write it out. Yeah. And because I went to Loyola, one of the things that they made me do, and I say made me do, was because I had to take these constructive writing classes where I had to construct these things, and you had to state your thesis and then spell it all out, and then culminate everything and have it all tie in together and make it all very organized. And I absolutely hated doing this because to me it was just time that they were taking away from me from practicing, I
just want to play, man, right?
Exactly. So I got maybe C's and B's in the class, and I just wanted to be done with it. Thank God I'll never have to do that again. So then once I got asked to start writing these articles, I realized, well, I had some writing skills.
Yeah.
And I had already organized my thoughts, and then once I went down to convey it to people in a Word program, word processor, or just the program Word, I was just typing this stuff out, and I realized I could actually organize my ideas and put them out there in a way that actually got the point across. So the magazine started telling me I was doing a good job. People started coming up to me on the street and telling me that I was doing a really good job. Bosphorus Cymbals at the time, I was with them, and the artist relations guy at the time, Brian Kay, who was very helpful to me in the early stages of my career. He introduced me to Sandy Feldstein, and Sandy, who is a godfather of percussion and he's no longer with us, but God rest his soul. Was a sweet, sweet man who was just a godfather to a lot of guys in the educational realm. And Sandy saw what I was doing and said, man, you've got a bunch of chapter outlines here. You could do a book. Then once I started putting the book together, he said, man, you could really do a DVD. So the more that I got the book together, the more I started getting asked to do more clinics, more master classes, more drum festivals, and then more drum camps. Then I started realizing I could host my own camps as well. So the teaching on a one-to-one level is okay, but what I like doing is getting a group of guys together, either in this situation or at a festival or at somebody else's camp, and really kind of having this big hang. You know, I like being in bands. I like being in groups like this, you know? One-to-one is cool too, that's fine too. But I like having a hang.
Yeah, you like the group dynamic.
I do.
Better.
I really do. And
That's
it took a
cool.
long time to realize that. Because, you know, when you first start writing an article, you're not even thinking like, yeah, I want to host a camp. You know, that's so far off.
Right.
Then once you start, you know, you do a camp for somebody else. You come in as a special guest. Like I was a guest with Thomas's Big Drum Bonanza. But before I did that, I came and watched Jeff Hamilton. I was spending some time in LA with my wife. And I was just looking on the internet, I see, oh, Thomas's Big Drum Bonanza, Jeff Hamilton's a guest. I'm off that day. So I texted Thomas and I texted Jeff and said, would y'all mind if I came and hung out? They're both like, man, come on. And so Thomas asked me then and there, he's like, are you gonna be in LA next year? Do you wanna be one of my guys?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so then that's how I met, I had met Elizabeth before, but that's musoentertainment.com. You can find out all of Thomas's happenings and future camps for me.
Perfect.
So by doing Thomas's camp, I asked Elizabeth, Thomas's wife, and I'd already met Elizabeth a couple of times. We'd been to dinner together, seen each other at some of the NAMM shows and events and stuff. So I asked Elizabeth, I said, would you help me put together a camp? You know, and this is my second camp, and Elizabeth has helped me with that. So, you know, it's just all very progressive, but you start small, and then it grows and grows and grows.
Right.
And now, you know, I'd like to mention too, I'm about to start my own subscription site.
Yeah, I
which I'm
heard you
excited-
talking about that.
Yeah,
with the
which I'm
guys.
really excited about.
That's
so
great.
Basically, what I want to do is create this kind of dynamic online, where I've done all the video lessons for Mark Wessels. Mark Wessels is the web designer for Vic Firth, and he wrote a book called Fresh Approach to Snare Drum, which has been doing great. Now he wrote Fresh Approach to Drum Set. I did all the video lessons for that.
Nice.
So that's going to be 33 lessons over 9 hours of material. So now, as a subscriber, you'll get instant access to all of that.
Great.
And then we're going to film all the videos for the snare drum book too. So all of that will be up there. So as I show you, you know, oh, people have been asking me about this fill. So here's the fill, break it down, slow it down. And then if you want to work on this, if you're not quite at this level yet, the foundational elements you need for this are in lesson 26 in the snare, in the drum set book, and lesson 13 in the snare drum book. And I'm going to put those right under there.
Cool.
So you're going to get a ton of foundational from beginner, here's how you hold the stick, all the way up through intermediate and advanced. That'll all be there.
Great.
And then plus all the new stuff, and I'll show you where the new stuff ties into the foundational stuff.
Cool.
So that's going to be coming out in mid-June, hopefully.
Great.
So
does that answer your question?
That was a great.
Yeah. So I'm excited about it, and it continues to grow. And,
Yeah.
You know, and through the elements and channels available, hopefully I'll be reaching a lot more people.
Well, we'll help push it out.
Oh, man, I appreciate
I'll
it.
get with Elizabeth every time something comes out.
Yeah.
Just let us know.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anybody? In the blue.
We'll work left to right.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about like your college days and sort of beyond. Can you talk about, like, 'cause I'm a music teacher, like your early education, if you will, like what sparked your interest, and maybe, you know, is there anything that you do currently that, you know, like go into schools or push education at the younger levels, because that's where it's so important.
Yeah.
We've only got, you know, a certain amount of time, because I want to make sure we get all of us playing.
Okay, cool.
So that everyone can see what they've learned from you.
Cool. So for me, my mom started bringing me to Mardi Gras parades when I was 8 months old. By the time I was 4 and 5 years old, I started being very impacted by the drums coming down the street. That's what made me want to play. I just thought, that's what I want to do. That's amazing. I just felt it in here. I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. And you like stand up close to the band as they're coming by, and you almost get hit in the face by the bass drum mallet. And I was like, that's awesome. So I just started hitting on pots and pans and didn't really have any formal instruction until I got to Marty Hurley in high school. And I wish that I had had some earlier education. And Mark Wessel's snare drum book, Fresh Approach to Drum Set, he took a lot of what Marty Hurley teaches and put it into this book. And I wish that I had had something like that at an earlier age. I might even be even better than I am now if I would have gotten started more seriously earlier, you know? So I think that it's important to get a good teacher, you know? And this thing that I'm gonna do with my subscription site and all that, I want to interface with all the teachers and make it so that my thing adds to what they're doing, not taken away. It's not going to be a replacement. Yeah. Hopefully I'll provide them with the curriculum, with the snare drum book and the drum set book and all my stuff, Groove Alchemy, and take it to the street, and then all the new stuff that I'm going to show, which is going to be a lot of rudiments and how I break up rudiments around the kit and how I modify. Everything that I do or you ask me to demonstrate, I can show you how it relates to a rudiment in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's just important, you know, private instruction and teaching is incredibly important, and anybody who wants to learn more about not only this instrument, but any instrument, seek out a teacher. There's teachers everywhere in your town, and the earlier you seek out a teacher, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, and if it's not working for whatever reason, if it doesn't seem like it's a fit, find another teacher.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to work, because teaching styles, like we talked about earlier, are important, I think, to whether or not it's going to work.
Man, I went from Marty Hurley, who is, you know, cock that pinky back, and he would literally hit it. You know?
Wow.
And you know, I mean, just strict. But I mean, I love, you know, he's no longer with us, but I love him to death. And he really got my hands together. I went from him to Johnny Vidakovich, diametrically opposed, super loosey-goosey, and just no curriculum, just, you know, we'd work on different stuff, and I love those guys equally. And I learned, you know, I owe my career to those two guys, and they couldn't be two different types of teachers. Yeah. But, you know, you gotta, you can learn something from everybody. And if you feel like it was time for me to move on from Marty Hurley and go to Johnny Vidakovich, you know? And so you can learn a lot, and then you can move on. And if you want to play, don't let a teacher, just because you're not gelling with that teacher, you can learn a lot from them, and you can go somewhere else.
Right. Any other questions? Who is next in line? I think we're going left to right.
Well,
yes.
Since he is Ronn Dunnett, we'll let him skip in line, but we'll get to you next.
I just have a question. I don't know if you saw it, Stanton, but I think it was in this month's Modern Drummer. I think it just came out that there was a feature where they were talking about drummers who were shapeshifters that were able to like cover all of these different types of music.
Yeah, that was in Drum magazine.
Yeah. Was it a drama?
Yeah.
I was just wondering how you felt, because you were up there with some pretty highly rated talent, and when I looked at the names, I saw what they were talking about, and I was just wondering, because I think sometimes you pigeonhole a lot as this funk drummer, but I've seen you do everything else. I was wondering what you thought about that.
I was incredibly honored, and you know, I would like to think that I don't want to say that I'm versatile. Let me say that I love a lot of different types of music, and I love playing a lot of different types of music. From, you know, jazz piano trio with brushes to Corrosion of Conformity, and you know, that's about as wide of a spectrum as you can get on a drum set, right? And so to be recognized, and they mentioned that in this article, to be recognized as doing that, I think it's really cool. And one of the reasons I originally wanted to play funk was I said, well, I could still play jazz, and if funk is where I kind of make that my center and become known as a funk drummer, I can dip back into jazz when I need to. I could dip into the heavier stuff as I need to. If I work on my groove, then I can also dip into these other things. And my master plan is working perfectly.
I think for the sake of the episode, we'll take one more question so that we can, I want to make sure we get the playing in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to comment, not only has Stanton taught us the different sticking motions you can apply to the whole drum set, but we've learned about his gear as well. And some of the stuff he plays, from the Everhard percussion stuff, to the snare drum, to his crescent cymbals.
Cool.
And I like his snare drum, if you can comment on it.
Yeah. Well, this snare drum is a titanium shell.
Can you hold? Would you mind holding it up?
Yeah.
So that De'Aaron can get it. And being titanium, obviously it's lighter.
Yes.
And what's
Which
the
is-
biggest sound property difference?
Well, as you
because of
say,
that?
obviously it's lighter, but a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people expect it to be heavy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Huh.
so,
This is what racing bicycles are made out of.
well,
and
I know,
everything.
but some people just think,
Spaceships.
they think, ooh, titanium, it must be heavy. But it's not, it's light. I met this gentleman at a drum show. This guy comes up to me wearing his cowboy hat and he says, "Hi, my name's Ronn Dunnett. I make snare drums. Come check out my drums." So I went and checked out his area, and he was making some beautiful drums, and he was winning the snare drum Olympics at the time and all this.
Oh, wow.
It was a vintage show in Nashville, and a bunch of people had told me about Ron, and I had already seen some of his drums in shops. And he says, "Have you checked out Titanium?" And I said, "Well, not yet." And so he showed me some of his Titanium drums, and I said, "Man, could you make one of these in a 4?" He said, "I guess I could," because at the time I was really digging the 4 size. So he made me a Titanium in 4, and I really dug it. And then we started experimenting with some different things. And then, long story short, we came up with this drum, which is a 4.5, and he's messed with the different snare bed, slightly different for this drum, slightly different thickness because it's a 4, and the thinner would flex a little bit, so it's just a hair thicker, so that it withstands different. When you tune the drum, and the drum will flex, and titanium is great because it has a memory and it'll just come back into place.
Oh, that's cool. That makes sense. Yeah.
So the sound elements that I like about titanium are that I was looking for something that was bright, that would cut through the bigger rooms.
Yeah.
So that the cracking backbeats would crack.
Yeah.
But I also wanted some warmth and some sensitivity, and titanium gives me that. So I can tune this drum to medium and back the snares off and get real nice slushy snare drum
That's cool.
buzzes. Can I play?
Yeah.
For a second?
Yeah.
So this is that. Ron just loves that. I can get some real slushy stuff.
That's beautiful.
Right?
That's really nice.
Now-
it sounds wet.
Yeah.
It totally
It
sounds
sounds
wet.
real wet. And
Yeah.
now, with just a couple cranks, and if I really want to get adventurous, right, I'll just put, just muffle it, right?
Yeah.
And then just a little bit.
Does it matter what kind of phone?
Well, as long as you don't hit it. But I've only done that 6 or 7 times. So now, just in a matter of seconds, I make it sound like a different drum.
Yeah.
Well, I missed that one.
That's
right?
cool. That's another effect.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Wow.
Right.
Cool.
Sounds like a different drum.
Beautiful. Good job. Great question. All of them.
So
were
very,
great
very
questions.
versatile drum, and I didn't even change the tune.
No, I know. You
So-
did. He didn't. In case you couldn't see, or you went to get a drink of water, he didn't change the tuning on the tension rods. It was just all right here on the strainers.
Yeah.
Put your favorite phone on there, somewhere where you won't hit it, and there you go.
Yeah.
That's
And
cool.
I usually don't put a phone on there. Sometimes do in the studio or something. But
In the
my
old days,
point-
did you use a pager?
Yeah, or your wallet or a hockey puck.
Yeah, used
or,
to use a wallet and duct tape in the old days. Yeah.
But my point is, with just a couple of minor adjustments, this can be a really, really versatile drum. And then imagine, sometimes I'll tune it up really high and use it for the crack and stuff, and then sometimes I'll tune it lower and have it real slushy for the New Orleans second line
That
stuff.
was cool. Real quick before we play, because I have to ask, we talked about Gretsch. You're using Remo heads, you're a Remo guy. And Crescent cymbals, I know Daniel Glass, good friend of our show, who also plays swing and big band and Royal Crown Review and Brian Setzer Orchestra. You know, there's all these conversations that people can have, Democrat or Republican, Apple or Windows, or, you know, all these different things. I gotta ask, when it comes to the cymbals, to clean or not to clean? And I ask because you got a lot of patina on there.
I think
Harold, get this,
I
please.
think I can answer that question very, very easily.
And what is your
The answer?
What is your answer?
The answer is I like to clean them. I just haven't had the time.
Oh, is it?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's how many gigs I play. I'm so busy.
Is it that you like the warmth and the darkness
I
that
do.
it builds up with?
Yep. I very much
Did you
don't
get-
like to clean cymbals. That's my personal. My personal.
And that's everything, whether it's a splash or the hi-hats or a ride or a crash.
What's a
it's just-
splash?
It's what he's got those hi-hats made out of.
Yeah, no, I like it, this is, you see, I'm kind of particular. I don't want them to be clean, but I do want them to look like they all belong together.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you go.
so a
Don't
pet
clean
peeve
it.
of mine is like having all these different colored cymbals and stuff. I want them to all look like they all belong together.
Yeah.
And so so these are all kind of at the same point of patina.
That's
you know?
cool.
So what I do is I just rub some lemon juice and salt,
Yeah.
and I rub it in with a towel and some elbow grease, and then within a matter of a couple of days, they start to turn kind of greenish.
Yeah, cool.
And sometimes, different colors of,
Yeah.
But
Beautiful.
what it does though is the cymbals sometimes have a little bit of a sheen, and it's not intentional. It's just this little sheen that repels fingerprints and sweat and grease.
Right.
I want them to soak up the fingerprints, sweat, grease, smoke.
Absorb the properties
Yeah.
and
So
that's cool.
So I rub off that little protective sheen and just hasten the patina process.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. How much time do we have to play? 11. Should we play?
Yeah. Definitely.
How do you want to do this? Do you want to show me something
Yeah,
and then
you want
we'll
me
all
to show
build
you
around
something?
it? Or, okay.
All right, I'm
I
gonna
need
show-
sticks, or I could just,
Here you go.
either way.
So I'm going to show you something that I've been showing these
Big
guys.
Firth, by the way, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, they got your name on them.
Yeah. This is my signature
Cool.
stick.
Cool. I'm
it's a-
taking these with me, just so you know.
Oh yeah, you can have them. I'll give you a new pair if you want. But yeah, since you brought it up, my stick is a
Yeah.
slightly longer,
Love longer
slightly thinner 5A basically.
Cool.
And with a acorn, a pinpointed acorn tip for a nice focused cymbal sound,
Yeah.
and all the different types of things that I play. And the reason I like a slightly longer stick is that you can choke back on it and get more leverage. You don't need to use a heavier stick when I have to play heavier.
Right.
And if I want to play lighter, well then I've got some same stick made out of maple, and it's a lot lighter. So I can do everything I need to do with the same stick.
Cool.
I like to keep things simple when I can,
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to show you something that I've been showing all these guys, and we're going to be able to use this. You're going to be able to, play this, and then we're all going to start playing, and we're going to pick
Okay.
up some stuff and play together. This is what I'm going to show you, and anybody who's seen me has probably seen me demonstrate this, but just for kicks, because this is kind of we can do so much with this.
And you know what we'll do? We'll play until we run out of tape. So I'll thank everyone now for watching. Myself and Stanton Moore here on Drum Talk TV. Thank you all for putting up with me, busting in on your class here. Really appreciate it.
Cool.
But yeah, so we'll go out with Stanton.
All right, here we go. So these guys are going to know this well, right? So the sticking I'm going to show you is right, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, right. Right.
Oh, but I'm
Right. Right.
okay.
Now, don't play two notes on the bass drum,
Okay,
just one.
one.
So,
Whoops.
now that's the basic thing. Now I'm going to pick it up in tempo.
Okay.
And if you want to hang, you
Okay,
can. Or
okay.
one of these guys, they've been working on it.
Okay.
So, yeah, these guys are like, I'm ready. I'm ready.
They're ready. Yeah.
They're ready.
I'll do it a little bit and then someone come on up.
Right. So what's beautiful about this is that you can move it all around the drums and get all kinds of different grooves, okay? So I'm going to start it slow again so the
Okay.
viewers can see,
just
because then
see
I'm
where
going
I'm
to pick it up in tempo, and then I'm going to get to the snare drum, and then whenever you're ready to turn it over to one of these guys.
Okay,
I'm sure.
which might be like a bar and a half.
All right, cool. So here we go. Slow again, and then we'll pick it up.
Okay.
All right, pick it up.
Want to play? Go for it. Whoops.